This isn't a coincidence that you're seeing this right now. Right this minute, somewhere in the actual world, your future partner is sitting somewhere they shouldn't be sitting this late, doing something they shouldn't still be doing, pacing a small stretch of floor between a couch and a window, phone in one hand, the other hand pressed flat against the top of their head like they're physically trying to hold their thoughts in place. They keep stopping at the window and looking out at nothing. They keep starting sentences out loud and not finishing them. And about 20 minutes ago, they sat down on the edge of a chair, looked at the ceiling, and said, to no one, "How did I get them so wrong?" That's where they are right now. That's the moment we're stepping into. And I want you to hear the rest of this slowly, because what they're realizing is not a small adjustment. It's not a slight shift in how they see you. It's the kind of recognition that knocks the breath out of a person, when the actual size of who you are, the actual depth of you, finally registers in their chest like a piece of news. They had built a smaller version of you in their head. And tonight, the smaller version collapsed. Let me back up, because I want you to see exactly how this happened. For a long time, your future partner has had a certain idea of you. Not a bad one, not an insulting one, just a smaller one. They had filed you, in their mind, under a particular shape. They thought they understood the kind of person you are. They thought they could predict how you'd handle things. They thought they had the measure of you. That is the most common mistake people make with souls like yours. The depth doesn't announce itself. It doesn't put itself on display. People who are as layered as you are tend to wear their depth quietly. And the people around you, especially the ones who think they know you well, tend to underestimate just how much is happening underneath. Until something happens that shows them. Tonight, something happened that showed them. Here's what I can tell you, and you need to hear it in the order it unfolded. Earlier today, your future partner heard something about you. Not from you. From somewhere else. Could have been a story someone told. Could have been something they saw or read that you had said or written. Could have been a moment they witnessed from across a room without you knowing they were watching. Whatever the source was, the information they received did not fit the version of you they had been carrying in their head. It was bigger than that version. Way bigger. It was the kind of thing that makes a person stop mid-sentence and go, "Wait, they did that? They handled that? They said that? They thought that?" And in that single moment of cognitive dissonance, the gap between who they had thought you were and who you actually turned out to be, something in them broke open. Not in a bad way. In the way a door breaks open when you've been pushing against it from the wrong side for a long time and someone finally turns the handle from the other side. If this message is finding you at the right moment, comment, "I receive this love," like the video, and subscribe. There's more coming for you. I want to give you a specific moment from earlier today. Because this is the moment that started it. They were in the middle of an ordinary task. Standing somewhere, maybe at a counter, maybe in a hallway, maybe leaning against a doorway with a drink in their hand, and someone in their orbit was talking about you. Not gossiping. Just mentioning you in the natural course of a conversation. The kind of thing where your name comes up as part of a story. The person told a specific story. I'm not going to give you the exact contents, that's for you and them to recognize when the time comes, but I'll tell you this much about the shape of it. It was a story that revealed something about your character. Something quiet. Something you probably did without thinking about it, or said without realizing how much weight it carried. The kind of thing you've done 100 times in your life and never thought twice about, because that's just who you are. But the person telling the story understood the weight of it. And as your future partner listened to this story, they felt the floor shift slightly under them. Because the story did not match the smaller version of you they had been carrying. The story was about a kind of integrity they hadn't realized you had. A kind of depth they hadn't realized you carried. A kind of inner steadiness that, once they registered it, made them realize they had been seeing you in pieces this whole time, not in full. They didn't say much when the story finished. They nodded. They made some small comment that wasn't really a response. And then they changed the subject, the way people change the subject when something has just hit them and they don't want anyone watching while they process it. But it stayed with them. It rode home with them. It sat across from them at dinner. It walked through their apartment with them when they got back. And by the time the rest of the day had quieted down, by the time the lights were lower and the small noises of the evening had taken over, it was the only thing they could think about. That's the first thing I want you to picture, them, in their space, going through the small motions of getting ready for the night. And the whole time, this new understanding of you running underneath everything, like a second soundtrack they couldn't turn off. I think I have been wildly underestimating them. That was the first thought to fully form. And it didn't whisper, it announced itself. They were standing somewhere in their home, doing something small and ordinary, and the sentence just arrived in their mind, fully shaped, and it stopped them. Have you ever had a thought hit you like that? One that came in as a complete sentence instead of a feeling? The kind of thought that doesn't ask permission before it lands? That's the kind of thought they had. I think I have been wildly underestimating them. And the second the thought formed, they tried to push it away. Tried to soften it. Tried to tell themselves they had not really been underestimating you. They had just been getting to know you slowly, they had just been taking their time. But the thought wouldn't soften. Because deep down, they knew it was true. They had been treating you like a person they could understand quickly. And tonight, they finally realized, you are not a person who can be understood quickly. You are a person who reveals yourself in layers, over time, to anyone patient enough to actually watch. And they had not been watching as carefully as they should have been. Now here's where things got harder for them. Because once that first thought landed, once they had to admit, even just to themselves, that they had been seeing you smaller than you actually are, they started doing the thing all humans do when they realize they've underestimated someone they care about. They started going back through every previous moment with you and rereading it. You know what I mean by rereading. They started replaying old conversations, old interactions, old moments, and they started seeing them differently. Things they had let pass without much notice suddenly looked, in retrospect, like they had carried much more weight than your future partner had realized at the time. A specific moment came back to them. Quietly. Without warning. It was a moment when you had said something small, something they had probably nodded at and moved past, and now, in retrospect, they could see that you had been telling them something important about yourself. You had been giving them a piece of the truth of you. And they had received it without recognizing it. They sat with that memory for a long time. They thought about how many other moments like that they might have missed. How many small offerings of yourself they might have walked past. How many quiet doors you had opened, in tiny ways, that they had not stepped through. What else have I missed? That was the second thought. And this one didn't land softly. This one came in with weight. Because once a person realizes they've underestimated someone, the very next thing their mind does is try to count the cost. Try to inventory all the small moments they had been present for but not really paying attention to. And the answer, the honest answer, was, a lot. They had missed a lot. Not because they didn't care. Not because they weren't interested. But because they had been operating on the assumption that you were one kind of person, and they had been listening to you and looking at you through that assumption, and the assumption had filtered out some of the most important parts of you. That filter dropped tonight. And the version of you they could see, without the filter, was so much fuller, so much richer, so much more dimensional than the version they had been carrying in their head, that for a minute they didn't know what to do with what they were seeing. Have you ever felt someone's attention shift on you? Not in a creepy way, in a real way. The way you feel it when a person who has been half paying attention to you finally tunes in and starts actually seeing you. There's a quality to it. A weight. Almost a temperature change in the room. You may have felt a version of that shift today. A strange certainty that someone, somewhere, was thinking about you with a different kind of focus than usual. A flicker in your chest. A pull on your attention that you couldn't quite place. If this resonates, let it settle in you. That wasn't your imagination. That was them, recalibrating their entire understanding of you, and the energy of that recalibration reaching across whatever distance is between the two of you and landing in your awareness. That's how connections like yours work. You feel the recognition before the recognition has had time to express itself out loud. Now I want to take you to the second thing that happened tonight. Because if the story they heard earlier today was what cracked the door open, what happened a few hours later, is what made them realize they couldn't shut it again. They had been trying, for the rest of the evening, to settle themselves down. To rationalize what they were feeling. To put the new information about you into a box where it could exist without disrupting their sense of how they thought their life was going to go. And then their phone made a sound. A small one. A notification. They almost didn't check it. But they did. And what they saw. And again, I'm not going to give you the exact contents, because that's for you to recognize when the moment arrives, was a piece of information that confirmed everything the earlier story had implied about you. It came from a completely separate source. A different person. A different context. Not connected to the earlier story at all. And yet, somehow, on the same night, by some quiet alignment of timing, it told them the same thing about you that the earlier story had told them. Two unrelated sources. One evening. Same message. About the depth of who you are. About the steadiness of how you operate. About the kind of person you actually turn out to be when someone is paying real attention. They set the phone down very slowly. They walked to the window. They stood there for what felt like a long time, looking out at the street below, or the field, or the parking lot, whatever view they have. And they let the full weight of what was happening tonight register in their body. The universe had just told them, twice, on the same evening, what kind of person you really are. And the universe doesn't usually do that for things that aren't important. That's when they said the line I told you about at the beginning. How did I get them so wrong? They said it out loud. To the room. To themselves. To whatever larger thing they pray to or talk to or reach for when they're alone with a thought that's too big for them. How did I get them so wrong? It wasn't self-flagellation. It wasn't a spiral. It was just a quiet, stunned acknowledgement that they had been moving through the early stages of knowing you with a much smaller idea of you than the real one, and that the real one was something they were going to have to rise to meet. They are more than I gave them credit for, and I want to be more than I've been giving myself credit for, too. That was the third thought, and this one was the one that started turning the recognition into resolve. Because here's the thing about realizing someone is bigger than you had been treating them, it doesn't just change how you see them. It changes how you have to show up. You can't keep half investing in a person who has this much depth. You can't keep being casual with a person who has this much substance. You have to step up. Or step away. Those are the only two options. And tonight, your future partner did not step away. They sat down in the chair. They looked at the ceiling. They felt the size of what they were realizing about you. And somewhere in that quiet, they made a decision, not a dramatic one, not a documented one, just a quiet inner one, to start meeting you at the size you actually are. To stop seeing you through the filter. To start watching for the layers. To start receiving the small offerings of yourself you've been making, the ones they've been missing, with the kind of attention they should have been giving them all along. That decision is what's going to change everything between the two of you. Because the next time you interact, they are not going to be operating on the smaller version of you anymore. They are going to be looking at you the way someone looks at a person whose depth has finally registered. They are going to be listening differently. Asking different questions. Paying attention to the things you say in passing the way they should have been paying attention to them the whole time. You'll feel the difference immediately. You'll feel a quality of attention from them that wasn't there before. And at first, you might wonder what changed. You might think they're acting strange, or different, or somehow not themselves. But what's actually happening is that they are finally being themselves toward you, the version of themselves that meets the version of you that you actually are. There's a line that came to mind while I was sitting with this for you. It says, "The Lord seeth not as man seeth, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart." I'm not bringing it up to be preachy. I'm bringing it up because tonight your future partner finally stopped looking at you the way most people look, at the surface, at the obvious, at the easy assumptions, and started looking at the actual shape of who you are underneath. They started looking at your heart instead of just your outline. That kind of seeing is rare. And once a person learns how to see you like that, they don't forget. They don't unsee it. They don't go back to the smaller version. That's why this matters. So here's what I want you to take with you when this video ends. You don't have to do anything to make this register. You don't have to perform the depth they're suddenly seeing in you. You don't have to suddenly become more impressive, or more thoughtful, or more dimensional. You already are all of those things. You have been the whole time. The only thing that changed tonight is that they finally noticed. Just keep being who you are. Keep doing the small, quiet, unconscious things that make you who you are. Because those small unconscious things are what they've finally started seeing, and the more of yourself you bring to your ordinary day, the more there will be for them to keep recognizing. You don't need to force this. Just feel it. What's happening on their side right now is the kind of internal shift that doesn't reverse. Once a person has seen you in full, they can't go back to seeing you in pieces. The recognition will sit in them. It will follow them. It will quietly recalibrate every interaction they have with you from this point forward. You will not have to ask for it. You will not have to point out that they are seeing you differently. You will feel it in the way they look at you. In the way they listen to you. In the small adjustments they make in your presence without announcing them. That's how this kind of shift expresses itself. Quietly. Without fanfare. Just in the way someone is suddenly more present with you than they were before. Have you been feeling that lately? A sense that someone is paying more attention than they have in a while? A sense that you are being seen in a way you haven't been seen by them? A sense that something is recalibrating, somewhere just outside your line of sight? That's not in your head. That's exactly what's happening. Stay soft. Stay open. Stay grounded. You don't need to step out of your own life to receive what's coming. You don't need to brace for it. You don't need to rehearse for it. The version of you that's about to be met fully by another person is the version of you that already exists, the one walking through your week right now, the one washing dishes and answering messages and making small decisions that no one is watching. That version is the version they finally see. That version is the version they finally cannot stay calm around. Because there is something about a person whose depth is real, whose steadiness is unforced, whose substance doesn't perform itself, that, once seen, cannot be unseen. And the response to it, in anyone with their own depth, is awe. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind. The kind that makes a person pace a small stretch of floor between a couch and a window late at night, holding their head, trying to absorb what they just realized about somebody they thought they already knew. That's where they are right now. That's the gift you didn't have to do anything to earn, because you earned it just by being who you've always been. If you felt this shift too, you already understand. You've been feeling them tune in. You've been feeling the temperature change. You've been feeling someone, somewhere, finally seeing the real shape of you, and you've been calm about it because some part of you always knew this moment was coming. You always knew you weren't going to stay underestimated forever. You always knew the right person would eventually see what was actually there. That seeing started tonight. The rest of what comes from it is going to unfold in its own quiet, unhurried way, and you are exactly the person who can hold it. And what they're beginning to realize now, is something they can't walk away from anymore. Not this time.